Good afternoon. Hello.
I've already been warned that we've got some troublemakers on stage, so I'm
Uh-oh.
going to need some help, okay? Thank you all for being here today. This has been an amazing summit so far, and I'm really excited to share the panel with these amazing minds. I wanted to just pause. I had a whole thing set up, and because of the Supreme Court decision that everyone has been kind of referencing, I wanted to take a quick moment and just evoke one of the ancestors and actually bring a quote into the space, and it's from Martin Luther King. It says, "It may not be true that law cannot change the heart, but it can restrain the heartless. It may be true that the law cannot make a man love me, but it can help him from lynching me." And I also think that's pretty important too. So a question as I was thinking about today's news was, what do we do when there is no law? What do we do? So we've got a great mind trust here. So as we think about accountability in action, I think it's important that we're thinking about what else can we do, and today's panel is truly about that. And I wanted to set a little bit of context because we're talking about defining the S in ESG. And ESG has been one of those things that it's a little bit elusive and, the S is not well defined. And I wanted to just, again, set some context. So ESG, or environmental, social, and governance, considers three main factors to evaluate the sustainability and ethical impact of an investment or business. The term ESG originated in 2004 with the publication of the UN Global Compact's initiative's inaugural Who Cares Wins report. For a host of reasons, this framework is gaining widespread popularity in the business world. For some, it's viewed as a replacement for corporate social responsibility, and we actually had the president talk about that a little, President Sirleaf talk about that a little bit this morning. And others may view it as a way to shift attention away from DEI efforts, and DEI will just disappear. And as my mother says, and I'm sure a lot of our mothers will say, that there's nothing new under the sun. ESG is no different. As early as the 1800s, a form of ESG was seen in socially responsible investing, or SRI. In the 1980s, ESG investing is actually credited with helping to dismantle apartheid. So just think about that for one moment, the power of that context. Let us consider what defining the S in the workplace could do for equity, equality, and inclusion today. Let us also consider that ESG is likely going to replace, and I had likely in here, and I'm less likely on the likely, okay, to replace DEI. By not defining the S, there's a consequence to DEI programming and policies. Again, they could just go away. So the SEC is also looking to issue regulations this year, and I think it's important that those definitions don't typically include brown and black people. So it's important that as we're sitting here, we are being as proactive as we can be. Because again, some people are saying that we are 18 months away from the end of DEI. So I want to start to hear from our panelists. We can define the S in a multitude of ways. I've heard community service projects, human rights initiatives, et cetera, But I want to toss it to Valisha to just say, how does Google define the S in ESG?
Well, I first just have to thank you and of course, Essence and Caroline and Richelieu and Alfonso and everyone for convening this powerful group of people on such a historic day. And when I think of the context of this conversation, and again, the power of this room to truly be the change, I think that there are no mistakes. I think we're here in this moment at this very specific time for a reason. And I also think it's not a coincidence that my two young black sons are in this room with me on a day like today. And so I want to recognize the historic and pivotal moment that today represents. And for the topic of this conversation, and specifically around ESG and the S in ESG, companies like Google that I'm proud to work for and represent have not yet created a definition, right? We have to have honest conversations. And we're not unique. There is no universal definition for the social and ESG yet. But I don't see that as a challenge yet, but in fact, an opportunity. However, there are companies like us who have made very clear and firm racial justice and racial equity commitments. And I think it's important to say racial equity, and specifically Black equity, when we start to design systems and ways to disrupt systemic bias that we're seeing in so many corporate spaces. And so today's Supreme Court decision, as we know, is not unique. It's history repeating itself. I remember the days of my grandparents in the rural South in North Carolina talking to me about Brown versus Board of Education and this whole notion of separate but equal, when we know that equal doesn't work, right? Equal is about, and I know we all understand this, but equal is about treating everyone fairly and the same. But equity, right, racial equity, Black equity, is really about setting differentiated strategies to level the playing field, because we know we are not represented, not only in these spaces, we're not being promoted in these spaces, we're not being retained, nor are we receiving equitably the level of Black investment that we need for our businesses. So just to give you a quick snapshot, because I know we're only talking about the definition, but racial equity commitments at Google, for example, were made post George Floyd's execution. They have been achieved by 80%, and it has included more than $300 million being committed to Black-owned businesses and Black-owned small businesses, but then also a $50 million unrestricted investment into 10 HBCUs. And I think HBCUs, I'm a proud graduate of Clark Atlanta University, now more than ever, are so vital to the education of our young people and our students. And what we're gonna see coming out of the Supreme Court ruling is a rush to the HBCU community because our students are getting blocked out. And will we have the capacity to support our young Black students if we're not making those critical investments? And so that's what the S is about to me.
So I love hearing that. I love that you brought history into this conversation, because we can't not think about history. And today truly is significant, and it's so appropriate that we're having this conversation on today. So thank you for that. Marion, I want to get your voice in the space, and I want to hear how Novartis defines the S.
So it's a journey for all of us, but I think the key things that we have to do around the S and in general is stop creating solutions for communities and start creating them with communities, right? And so that's number one. Number two, they have to be long-term and sustainable. We have to stop jumping in and jumping out. When the heat gets high, people are jumping out. So we have to make sure that we do that. And then the third thing that we have to do is we have to collaborate across. We can't compete to solve problems. We have to collaborate to solve those problems. So how are we doing that at Novartis? Our Beacon of Hope initiative is one example. It's a 10-year, $50 million commitment that we have partnered with 26 HBCUs, and Dr. Linda Armstrong mentioned it earlier. But it's multifaceted. So this is not a simple solution, and it's not a simple problem. So we're looking at the health component, but there's also an education and economic side that has to be addressed. So we are empowering the next generation of leaders through scholarships. So we're giving out $30,000 to these students to ensure that they graduate without debt. We know that after the sophomore year, a lot of these students drop out. So how do we help to solve that problem? We provide the money. But we can't just throw money at the problem. We also have to mentor our young people. And so we have created a mentoring program where they all receive a mentor from Novartis, and we have a full curriculum for these students where they actually receive education around emotional intelligence, right? How to navigate your career, executive presence, and financial responsibility. So those are the things that we're doing through our Beacon of Hope program, in addition to all of the health components that Dr. Armstrong spoke about.
Thank you for sharing that, Marion. Caroline, I want to come to you for a second. So I'm curious to get your perspective, because we've heard just how these two companies are working in the community, but I feel like something is missing, and I'm curious to get your take on what do you think is missing?
So I'm in corporate recovery. I say that because some of the stuff I'm about to say I said when I worked there and some I didn't. Raise your hand if you like potato salad. Don't be scared, just do it. Raise your hand if you eat potato salad. Raise your hand. Okay, put it down. Raise your hand if when you are at a public function and you see potato salad, you first ask who made it. Raise your hand. Okay, put your hands down. Put your hands down. Raise your hand if, depending on what name is said, you may not eat that potato salad. Raise your hand. What's missing is we forgot that we would rather starve than be used. We're pickier about what potato salad we eat more than we are about where we spend our money. We will starve if Margaret made the potato salad because she uses mustard. But we'll spend our money at the companies that don't give a crap about us. You will starve because you don't like who made the potato salad, but you will continue to use your dollar to support the folks that you are paying to continue ignoring you. You will starve and not eat Margaret's potato salad, but you will pay to be ignored. DEI, BIPOC, HBCU, pick a letter. This isn't Scrabble. You don't get credit for moving around blank tiles. I think the conversation we need to be having is the distraction that is DEI programs and BIPOC programming and all this stuff. And yes, that was my title and my job for 5 years. I'm not naive to that. I'm actually more educated because of it. Are distractions from the fact that we don't need them. Us, the black folk, the ones that don't eat potato salad that Margaret made, us. I'm talking to us. What do I mean by that? You gave a definition of equity and equality. I believe that equality is giving everybody a shoe. Equity is giving everybody the shoe that fits. But you can still walk without shoes. We got to learn we can walk without shoes. I think I'm not saying that systems don't play a role. I'm not saying that they aren't playing roles in what we're able to do in corporate America and anywhere else. But at the end of the day, at the point that we realize that they will move how we move, we will realize we don't need shoes. They will continue to incrementally work because you will continue to extraordinarily spend your money with them. If you spend 50 and I only got to spend 5 for you to come spend 50, I'll spend $6 so you come spend 60. If you stop bringing your 50, I'm going to wonder why. And when I come to ask you why, you're going to tell me why, and I'm going to change it so I can get your $50. What clothes do you have on? What businesses do you frequent? What services do you order? Do they take care of you? Do they take care of your community? There's a Native American principle of the 7th generation. You are purchasing continued oppression from the institutions that will do the minimal to keep your money. They will only change when you change. So in the same way Margaret's potato salad is worth starving for, you don't need shoes. Stop spending your money with the organizations that are not representing what's right for your community. They will go to Congress and make them change their mind. Because it's for them. They need everything over there to be right for them to make their money, and your money isn't coming until they make it right for you. It sounds simple, and it is. The S in ESG is for slithery, subjective, satisfactory. Pick a word. The systems are there. The mechanics of the system are right here in this room. Fix the problem.
So glad you just said that. Fix the problem. And remember when I came out, I told y'all, I said I had some troublemakers.
You weren't talking about me, you was talking about Mark.
Yeah, yeah, and I love it. This is what we need. So we're in this room because a lot of us have decided that we're going to spend our time in corporate America. And you just mentioned change the system. So what do we do to change the system? How do we show up in these spaces to change the system?
Did you decide to be in corporate America? Raise your hand if you decided to be in corporate America.
I did.
Raise your hand if you decided to be in corporate America. So what happened if none of you raised your hand? You had to be in corporate America? Is that what happened? It's a literal question. So we didn't decide to be in corporate America? I'm asking the question you asked to the room.
Yeah.
Are we in alignment that we decided to be in corporate America? We are. You decided you wanted this job. It was the best opportunity. If a different would have been offered, would you have taken this job? My point is this. I think we get caught up in all this stuff that sits up here when we realize, you know why I went into corporate America? Because I had a daughter to feed and I just sold out for 20 years so I could send her to college. I never wanted to be in corporate America. Yes, I decided, but I didn't decide to go to corporate America. I decided to feed my daughter. And I understood that for a while I'd have to be a drone. And when I was done, I would return to the community work that gave me life. So I was there for a period. I understood why I was there. I decided to go, but there was a reason, which meant that I then defined what my existence there looked like and what I wanted to make the legacy. And when that was done, I looked for a place to do legacy different. I want us to understand that our decisioning is within our control. If you decided to be in corporate America, why? And part of your responsibility is to leave that place better than you found it. Have you? The question is, did you decide to be in corporate America?
I don't mind
I can
answering.
answer. And I know the answer is different for everyone here, but I did decide very intentionally to enter and occupy a corporate space that represents over $1 trillion in value to unlock those dollars for our community. Very intentional. This was after having served as the co-president of the Grammys, having spent 25 years in different spaces, including working for President Obama, and having had grandparents and parents who were all elected officials. My grandmother, just as an example, was the former, one of the founders with Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune of NCNW, just to give you an idea, in the 1930s. And my dad, who was is the former chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congressman Butterfield, said to me one day, as much as I would love for you to run for office or, to do all the things that, we did, what do you want to do? And I said, it's not that I want to work in a corporate system, but I see such an opportunity in that system to make it right. And not that system right, but instead getting those dollars into the hands specifically of Black-owned businesses, right? So for me, ownership, Black entrepreneurship, Black innovation, getting the resources and the investment, not the help, right? We're not helping Black-owned businesses, but investing in Black-owned businesses, investing in HBCUs, again, unrestricted, where we're not, trying to direct where the funds go, but just trusting the mission and those universities and those businesses to do what they need to do to grow their businesses and our economy, our Black economy. And so, and it's hard. It's hard, right? Like, I sit here as one and represent probably dozens in this room and in our industry of Black women and Black men as DEI leaders in predominantly white corporate spaces, and it is like moving a mountain. And we're still here, right? Melanie Parker, my boss, Chief Diversity Officer of Google, is here. We're still here. And we're here because it has to be a multi-pronged strategy, right? We can't just operate, I believe, in a siloed space. And so as I occupy these spaces to unlock the dollar, it truly is a very purpose-driven, in a lot of ways, selfless decision, because it's hard as heck, but still it's worth it when I start to see the returns and the gains happening in our